We acknowledge the land we stand on as the territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit,
the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations,
Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this peer-to-peer interview with two IPF alumni. I'm Mark, the Associate Manager and Climate Lens Facilitator at the Independent Production Fund. The IPF provides development and production financing for short-form series, or in other words, scripted series with episodes less than 20 minutes each. Our next program deadline will be in March of 2024 for our development packaging program. Only those selected for development are eligible to apply for production financing in the fall. This panel will focus on two creators, Alexander Nunez, star and showrunner of Well Versed, and Bronwyn Szabo, filmmaker, star, and showrunner of It Doesn't Show, who have been through the IPF's development and production programs. So you can hear firsthand what that entire process is like. If you have any questions about the IPF, you can visit our website at ipf.ca or get in contact with us via email at info@ipf.ca. I'll likely be the one to respond. We're a small team of only 3 people, but we'll get back to you with any questions that you have. If you have any questions for the creators, the people you're here today to see throughout the panel, please put them in the comment section, and I'll be back at the end to moderate a Q&A. So yeah, let's introduce our panelists. Alexander Nunez. He is an actor and writer of Jamaican and Chilean descent. He is most well known for his performances in programs like Moonshine, Avocado Toast, another IPF series, and A Teacher. On Moonshine, Alexander stars as Sammy Finley Cullen and works as a writer on the show's 3rd season. His other writing credits include This Hour Has 22 Minutes and the multi-award-winning digital series Avocado Toast, the series. For his work on This Hour, Alexander was nominated for a Canadian Screen Award for writing on a sketch comedy and / variety series. Alexander's short, Diversity Hire, has since garnered success at several festivals, including 2020's Just for Laughs. Alexander's own original series titled Well Versed is currently under development in partnership with Border to Border Entertainment and is set to premiere on OutTV in 2024. Our other panelists, Bronwyn Szabo, filmmaker and showrunner. They are also a writer and professional actor of Inuk and white settler descent based in Toronto, Ontario. Beginning her journey at Stradian Acting Studio for film and television in 2006, Bronwyn has been cultivating her storytelling crafts ever since. She is a web series creator and in 2019 began writing for the APTN series In Anna's Tent. Her pandemic has been productive. Her directorial debut, Mardal, a horror short film about her haunted dollhouse, toured festivals, including the Toronto Indie Horror Festival. She conceived and made it entirely in quarantine, along with the Just Us documentary for Street Art Toronto. As much as she loves staying home and making things, she was also thrilled to co-direct the 3rd season of Anana's Tent on APTN, co-produced the short film Fangirl, funded by the Canada Arts Council, as well as narrate her first audiobook, Happy Hour by Marlo Granados. Her inner 21-year-old party girl was very happy to be let out. In fall 2021, Bronwyn was honored to be selected as director participant in the Women in the Director's Chair Career Advancement module, where she began developing her Indigenous horror comedy web series It Doesn't Show, for which she was honored to be awarded the Jeff Barnaby Grant, supported by Imaginative and Netflix. Her heart and mind were blown wide open by the grace of the mentors and her fellow participants. So I'm going to hand it over to both of our panelists, and specifically Bronwyn, who's going to get us started. She's going to introduce the trailer for It Doesn't Show. Thank you to both of you for being here today, sharing sort of all of the ups and downs of making a short form series with the community at large. And I think there's going to be a ton to learn from both of your processes. So thanks, and I'll see you at the end for a Q&A.
Cool. Thank you so much, Mark. That was a very wordy bio I gave you, so thank you for giving that. I'm so happy to be here. Hi, Alex. I'm so excited to interview you. Hi.
Me too.
Cool. So yeah, Mark pretty much covered it all for me. I'm Bronwyn. I'm a filmmaker, actor, writer. I wear many hats. I am the creator, writer, director, star, executive producer of It Doesn't Show. It's been quite a journey with IPF the last, I guess, year and a half now. Yeah, I guess it's a horror comedy about the collaborators, which are Inuit sea monsters that snatch children who play too close to cracks in the ice. So I guess we can just watch the trailer. Hey. It's being shelved. Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to share a piece of my cultural identity with you. I learned so it's dead in the water.
What's eating you, older cousin?
I think I'm cracking up.
I knew they were real.
You knew?
They need children, Anna. Come on.
What is a calipilui?
No one ever believed me, but Ananatia told me.
I think it wants revenge.
For what?
I sold out. I'm a bottom feeder.
Naglin na.
I'm okay, Evelyn. I feel let off the hook, you know?
Wow. Before I get, this is so great. Before I get into my questions, I just want to commend you and congratulate you on such a great trailer. You know, you and I both know it is a tenet of the program to sort of give it what you got in a limited amount of time to shoot, but also to deliver something really, really impactful in just a couple of minutes. And yeah, clearly, you know, you've done a fantastic job, and it's obviously got you to the place you want to be, which is, you know, producing this thing. So congrats on that, first of all.
Thank you so
Um,
much.
yeah, my so my first sort of question about it, we get a lot of really great hints as to, you know, what this series is going to be about. Um, but I'd love to have you speak more about it. You know, it doesn't show. It's such a great double entendre for, you know, this literal demon that she faces, the Kalopilawit, um, as well as the fact that your character, based on maybe an old description, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but based on the fact that your character is trying to embrace her indigenous heritage, which she has, I guess, previously been denying herself. So can you share the inspiration behind this series, and how, if it is inspired, how your own life experiences inspired it?
Sure. Oh my gosh. Yeah, you emailed me that question. It's like, oh, let's just get right into the dark stuff. Yeah, sure. Good question. Yeah, so yes, the double entendre is right. It's kind of about being like a white passing indigenous person. It really wasn't until, you know, it's kind of different for every like indigenous person, but it's sort of easy to feel growing up like if you don't grow up in your community or your family. Oh my
But totally take your time. It's all good.
But yeah, like it's kind of true. Like you do end up like denying it, not in the way like that you're trying to pretend that you're all white, although that's probably a part of it. But it's like it's almost like you feel like you've forfeited a part of yourself, and like you don't feel like you have a right to it anymore. So yeah, so it's kind of about that.
That's beautiful, honestly. I think obviously it hits such a raw place in you, which just speaks to how it's like brave it is that you can put this into a story. I think it's something that a lot of people within obviously your own culture can understand. But I think in terms of just living in Canada and bringing in, being a child of immigrants and feeling even just a sense of disconnection, like within my own culture, I think it's something that a lot of people can understand on a broader scale, which is what makes this concept just so intriguing. I really can't wait to watch it. You mentioned to me sort of previously going in a darker direction with this series after sort of realizing how striking the subject matter was to you. Um, could you speak a little bit about that tonal pivot for anyone who isn't aware and watching this at the time that it was just a trailer, was sort of pitched as a horror comedy? Are you still sort of going in like a more hard horror stance?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it really speaks to how, like you said, how challenging it is to make a trailer, especially a trailer from nothing, from a show that you haven't actually made yet. Yeah, and especially when you're mixing genres, like it can be just become a real like salad where nothing really hits. But yeah, like I do want to go in a darker direction. The goal, as I said, is Buffy the Vampire Slayer tonally, but maybe a bit darker. Yeah, I kind of think, yeah, anyways, I think I'll leave it at that. I feel like you kind of have to like let the project evolve on its own and just, like it's not a totally done idea, even at the time of like your development application, even at the time of your production application. Hopefully it will like breathe and change and evolve and continue to. So just kind of want to like see where it goes naturally. Yeah. Does that make sense?
That's great. I think, yeah, that totally makes sense. I really, yeah, I really understand that. I think, not to tie in my own project, but I think
Yes.
it is the thing about this program, right? Like you do need to come in with such a clear concept. You really need to stand your ground in terms of the kind of story that you want to make. But the great thing about IPF and the reason why these, the steps specifically making the trailer is so great is that you do get to experiment a little bit with the how. And you come out learning something, really new about your project that maybe you didn't before.
Yeah.
I want to get into sort of the production and the creation aspects of this project. You in this are, a multi-hyphen. I really commend you for wearing all these hats. You're writing it, directing it, acting in it, playing a huge role in, producing this thing. First and foremost, like, I want to know kind of like what your favorite job is of the three, if you have any, like, and you can say two, you could say all of them if you want, but is there a favorite in this process?
Thank you. Well, I would say my answer used to be acting is my favorite. It probably still is. It's my first love. But I think writing is really it's kind of like the hardest, and it's kind of like, it's such a bitch, but you have to just get through it, and it's the most rewarding, and it's the most fun, I think. You kind of feel like God, like, you know, you're in charge. Anything right happens.
Yeah.
I love directing. Producing is another thing that's just like, it's so hard. Producing is definitely the most tedious aspect. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like producing is like 90% reading contracts and paperwork, but it's so important. But yeah, I mean, I think they're like all rewarding in different ways, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. So could you talk to us a little bit about how you came to develop this series? Like how in your mind, like, has it majorly evolved from sort of this, like, the first idea in your head to the final product? Like, what really inspired you to, like, what really solidified this concept for you?
That's interesting. Well, I'm sure because you're a writer too, you probably know like ideas can sort of take like years or decades to sort of like germinate in your head before they find out what they really are. I've been like outlining a feature about the Calipiluit like 10 years like 10 years ago. And then I previously told you this, but I came up with the idea for this series, and it was not a horror at first. It was just supposed to be like a comedy or a comedy drama. But I just like talking with my mentor, like it was just so like emotionally like drained, like taxing to get through. And it wasn't until then that it was Carol Whiteman from the Women in the Director's Chair. And she was like, yeah, babe, it's a horror, obviously. Oh yeah, it definitely is. And that's when I kind of realized, I'm like, oh, I feel like I've been working on these two separate ideas for years. I'm like, it's the same idea. It's the same story. So I kind of just like put them together, and yeah, that's kind of what happened.
Okay. What was your for I'll ask it sort of twice, but what was your writing process like specifically for the trailer? Because again, for anyone that doesn't know, you know, in IPF, yeah, it's a 2 to 3 minute trailer. Typically, people go many different kinds of ways in making this trailer, but it's such a unique experience in that typically when you're making something like this, you're kind of just editing material that you already have, as opposed to sort of making a brand new short. Um, so yeah, like what was the process in making the trailer like for you, and um, what was sort of the most important thing that you wanted to get across to your audience at the time?
That's such a good question, because writing the trailer was so hard, as we've said, when you haven't like
Oh yeah.
shot the whole thing or even written the whole thing yet. Like, you know, I had outlined it. I vaguely knew what happened, or I pretty much knew what happens in every episode, but still like I hadn't written every script yet. So I decided to take a real, like I tried to really think strategically when I was writing this trailer, because of the genre, it's horror. Like you need to see the horror. Like I do think it's a genre where you need to see some set pieces. What's the nature of the monster? What, you know, so I tried to, it was a lot. Like, I think it was a pretty ambitious trailer. We had so many we had like, I don't know, like 20 different setups and scenes and everything. So I was just trying to really sell the audience on like, here's why it's scary. Here's why it's funny. And then, yeah, it was just such a balancing act of like giving hints, just enough hints about what the story is, but also like, what are you coming for? You know, and yeah, what's the monster? You always have to like give hints at what the monster is. And then of course, also thinking strategically as a producer, like what can I actually pull off effectively, right? Like I couldn't,
Yeah.
so like the actor who will be playing the monster, like she hasn't been cast yet. I want to cast her or they out of Iqaluit, hopefully. So I'm like, well, I don't have money to like fly them down to Toronto, right? So you sort of have to think creatively as a writer and a producer? Like, what can you do that gets you the most impact that's still under the budget? So yeah, it was tough, but I had an amazing like art department team, and like my co-producer is great at like, he's more experienced, Nason Markwell, he's more experienced at like producing and budgetary stuff with me. And so sometimes he would actually be like, I'm trying to bring it under budget. And he'd be like, no, like this is a time when we should spend money. Like, could we, you know, like it's sort of about knowing when to invest and when to be responsible. But yeah, you kind of just have to be like ambitious and just find that balancing act of like showing as much as you can, but still doing it well and impactfully.
Yeah.
And I think as a writer, you know, like sometimes you have to kill your darlings. So,
all the time.
Like all the time. Yeah. So
no, that's interesting. It's a good I find that like a lot of people really go one way or the other. Like you know, I know lots of people who, despite, you know, the reality of what the budget is, which is always small in digital media, they want the stars and the moon. And I've found sometimes I go too much in the opposite direction. Sometimes like you write with a producer brain, and yeah, sometimes you need like that person to tell you like, just try things. And you know, there's so many different ways, there's so many different cost-effective ways to try to achieve this thing, which is why I'm so, I guess, like in awe of anyone that can pull off like the horror genre in the way that you did, because like it does take creativity. Like it takes so much creativity to be able to, you know, achieve these effects, right? Because they famously, you know, horror is something that people famously give very little money to. I think that maybe that's changing now. It's grown so much as a genre, but
no, it's very true. Like I feel like in the world of feature films, horror, like you said, is famously like cheap to produce. I'm like, it's still not that cheap. It's not as cheap as like you know, like a straight like comic or anything where it's just like two people talking. Like there is still some special effects and stuff involved. So yeah, you have to get creative. But that's what always like I think my favorite horror stuff is always usually the cheaper stuff anyways. Like, well, like to go back to Buffy, it's like you watch old episodes and like I literally see the strings.
Yeah.
You know, like with a huge budget. So you can pull stuff off creatively.
Yeah, well, I think people have really come to accept that about it. Like there's something like kitschy about horror as a genre that I feel like, I don't know, people maybe used to be really snobby about a few years ago, and now it's like it's what we come to see it for. You know what I mean? The camp aspect.
Exactly.
I wanted to ask you a little bit about, you know, you're going into production this spring. I wanted to ask you a little bit about your time actually now writing out these episodes, and what that kind of looks like for you. Because, you know, writing a digital series is so different as opposed to traditional film and TV. How long are these episodes, just for my own reference?
So the goal is 9 minutes each, but some of them are clocking in at longer so far. So we'll see. Yeah, I've written all 7. I finished writing them back in like January or February now, so I feel like it's been a while. So I would say the 3 that I submitted are pretty polished, but the rest, they're going to need to be story edited more. Yeah, I loved writing. Yeah, this is just why I love digital series so much, because there are no rules. Like there's no act breaks that you need to like write to. It's kind of just like, do you have a story? Do you have something that gets accomplished in every episode? Do the characters move forward or backwards each episode? What is the reason? And that's it. There's not that many rules or structural rules you need to. So that's what I love about digital series. You kind of just you get to let it be what it is.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's like a great, I mean, I say this in knowing like no one wants to fail, but like it is a good environment to really experiment with yourself and your own ideas. It really does feel like a safe space to just try something. Um,
Yeah.
my other question was, what advice, if any, would you give to someone looking to submit a project to IPF? Just even in the realm of um, just thinking of something that would be a good idea for a digital series.
I think it's a good question. I feel like the rules are changing with digital series. That's why it's so exciting. I think just like pick something that you feel passionate about. You don't even have to like understand why, but just like have a clear vision. And I think because it's so competitive, you just have to make a really good case for why you are the right person to tell this story. You need to make yourself indispensable to it. And I think what's hard is like, that's sort of a tall order, but the benefit is, there's more room for new people to break in that way, I think. And it means you don't have to be the most experienced person in the room. You don't have to have like the most impressive resume. You just need to like show up with your full heart and just have confidence in the story you're telling, I think, and take ownership of it, because that's what people want to see. They want to see leadership in the storytelling.
Yeah, no, oh my gosh, that's such a great answer. No, I agree. Like, it's always hard when you're trying to sort of just find something to fit the format of what you think IPF is looking for. I find that, the people that find the most success in this program tend to submit things that like really, really come from the heart. And they always have a perspective, like a really important perspective that they feel they need to get out there. The same as anything else, right? Like the same as any other project that you create or work on. I'm hoping I have one more time for one more question.
It's exciting, right? Like we all want to like feel like we're discovering a new creator or a new voice, and it's like, why? Yeah. Anyways, we're running out of time. Sorry.
We are. I know. It's all good. You know what? Just one more. Okay. Cool. I was wondering, because you more than me have just been so involved, like as an executive producer, like whereas I have a producing partner who thankfully, is willing to do the paperwork and stuff like that for me. What's been your experience in finding funding for your series outside of this program, outside of IPF, and how long did that take for you to get to where you needed to be to produce?
Well, good question. It's still ongoing. Hopefully the answer will be by December 2023. I'll have all the confirmed financing. Feel like it's like stops and starts. Like I found out in November of 2022 that we got IPF. I'll try to answer this quickly. And then I think like in January of 2023, I got the Jeff Barnaby grant and the APTN Lumi license agreement, which came with funding. So I was like, damn, I'm like 3 for 3. I'm feeling so good. And then I had to redo my applications to Belfund and Ontario Creates in the summer, which was like devastating. But so, it's ups and downs. It's a roller coaster, and you just have to stick with it. Like it's probably not going to be all yeses right away. I'm happy for you if it is, but you just have to take the punches and roll with them and just keep trying.
Yeah. Oh, good answer. Yeah, it does. It feels like almost forever from the beginning, and then then you get to a place where you're like, where did the time go? But I feel you on that.
That's exactly right. Okay.
I guess I should. I'll pivot. I'll pivot over, to myself and my show.
Please do.
Yeah, my project's a little bit different. We're in comedy world in my show. This is a series that I wrote called Well Versed. It's a show about a modern day matchmaker. He specializes in queer relationships. His name is Mason, and all the while, and he's successful. He's good at what he does. All the while, he is terrible in his marriage. He doesn't know necessarily how to be a good and available partner to his husband, and the series is about the question of whether or not he can find a work-life balance, whether he can continue to do a great job at, finding romantic for his clients and, keeping himself and his husband happy. So yeah, that's well versed, and I guess we can take a look at the trailer.
Today's question comes from Twitter user @KylaWonder93. What can I do for her that a dating app can't? Dating apps, don't get me started. Headless torsos, crappy pickup lines, ghosting. You want to wade through all that? You are full of shit.
A little intense.
Yeah, okay. I felt that. All right, take two.
Okay.
Mason, the magical matchmaker. I should probably listen to your podcast. I don't think I've even saved it.
And what's the number one thing you're looking for in a date?
They have to be fit, preferably vegan.
Long walks, yoga.
Do you know what a furry is? Match me to someone with a persona and a huge...
I'll see what I can do.
Hey, we have a little problem.
What?
One of your clients is sabotaging his dates.
What? Who?
Kenny Stanton.
Okay, all the talk about your ex-wife, that's for date 3, okay? And no more first date sex.
Isn't that what game is?
Kenny, no more first date sex.
This is a $100 bottle.
Yeah, and it's terrible.
What's the point of matchmaking if you're not allowed to smash the cuties?
I can't even begin to explain how problematic that is.
If you're working at a Hershey factory, deadass, you're gonna take home some of the chocolate.
Mason, I do want something real.
Yeah, and I'll help you find it. That's how this is supposed to work. I didn't do anything wrong.
You didn't do anything wrong. You didn't do anything wrong.
Mason, I am your friend, not your client. I don't need your help, okay?
You would rather mess with everybody else's shit than clean up your own.
Hey.
Hey, babe. You coming home soon?
Everyone wants something different. But I bring people together to see for themselves if they have any real chemistry. No games, no algorithms. All you have to do is trust me. You want love? I'm here to help. I don't know, this used to be easy and I feel like my head's gonna explode.
I gave into my first threesome this weekend.
Oh!
They called me daddy and I started crying halfway through.
Oh.
It's not great.
My hair.
Your beautiful hair. Yeah, it looks great. It looks great, long and short.
Thank you.
Yeah, so so congratulations. I've watched this like 5 or 6 times now, and I feel like I notice something different every time. So again, I just want to commend you. Amazing trailer. I have so many questions. Right away, I want to say, hey, your show is about like sex and dating and relationships. And thank you for making a sexy trailer. Like the vibes are there. I think, that's part of why it's so successful. And obviously touched the audience, so to speak. So and the humor shows up too. It's well acted. So right away, I'm just like, I want to know, like, tell me about your writing experience of the trailer. And I know that you didn't direct the trailer, but how much input did you get into kind of like the tone, the look, the feel? It's so moody and like.
Oh, thank you. I was a bit of a control freak about it. I thankfully just have a very good friend. His name is Krister Harris, and we like we're like this. We share a brain, and we love to collaborate whenever we can. And I think I'm really jealous of people who are able to, you know, act and direct at the same time. But like I just don't have, I guess, like the neural path necessary. So I just I knew that if I was gonna direct, I wasn't gonna be I was gonna be lacking in some other department. So Krister was great. He gave me a lot of leeway for input. Um, I gave him a lot of references. I think the tone of the show has shifted a bit. Like it is going to be a little more comedy forward. It's a little more. It's the pace is going to be a little quicker. I hate to be the thousandth person to like reference Veep in whatever show that they're making, but it's going to be a little more touch and go. But the drama is still there. At the time, I was and still am such like an Insecure fan, and I loved the just like the artful way that a comedy like that was made, and I was just really inspired by that. The trailer was like something. I had never made a trailer from scratch before. And like you had sort of mentioned earlier, it was just all about what I wanted to convey, especially just the emotion of what I wanted to convey. Because, yeah, there's just something about this character who feels exhausted by helping so many people and leaving his cup completely empty in his own personal life, like that I really, really wanted to explore. Um, I wrote it with that emotion in mind. But there are things in that trailer that aren't necessarily true to like what the actual plot of the show will be. Like, he never. We have all the episodes written out. It's like 6 sort of 15 to 20-minute episodes, and he never actually cheats on his spouse. But ideas from the trailer actually had inspired ideas for what the episodes are now.
I found that a really interesting part of the process too. I think constructing the trailer and even writing out the 3-page like pitch, I found it forced me to like understand my own story better. It sounds like, was that a similar experience to you too? Like it influences
Yeah, I think at the time that I had this trailer, I had a half-hour script. So there were things I pulled from that script, and it was like a dramedy script. I think at the time it's like everybody wanted to do a dramedy. You know, because sort of had just done such like an immaculate job of it. And so I think there are parts of that in hindsight that I was trying to emanate that I didn't necessarily, and that I'm picking and choosing now for the actual show. But all in all, I have a way better understanding of Mason, the main character, now that I did then. I think he's learning from what I liked and disliked from the trailer. I think he's a much more well-rounded and just like funny character. I think there like a bit of the joy was missing from him in that trailer, but I think I just had to make the trailer to figure that out. So yeah, I think it just speaks to the fact that like your trailer doesn't have to be perfect, and it doesn't, you know, the concept should be strong, but you should be totally open to the fact that things will change. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, again, just letting it breathe. Yeah. Well, on that note, I actually want to commend you. I can't wait to see the version of this show with more of a Veep influence, but I really enjoyed that the trailer is sort of like, it takes its time. It's a comedy, but it's not like pulling punches every second. I think it shows a lot of confidence in the writing and directing. So
Oh,
Very
thank
cool.
you. We hopefully won't lose those aspects. I feel like I haven't. The tone is, I mean, I'm, a joke, like I'm habitual in the way that I write. So I do think it's important. I feel like we're so used to um just like everything's so fast paced nowadays.
Mhm.
Um I think it's important, I think, to have, some breathing moments. You know, I think people
Yeah,
forget that, but
I like it. Um, okay, so you kind of talked to me about this earlier. So this series looks a bit like a sex education, but for grown-ups, which I really love. I'm not going to ask you how old you are, but is there anything about about our generation? I'm a millennial. Is there anything about, millennials, older Gen Zs that you think makes us like a really important audience for this show or an underserved audience for a sex education type of show?
yeah, this show tackles a lot of themes, a lot of dating themes that like I feel like I see in my everyday, not just with me and my partner, but with my friends and their relationships. Um, I feel like millennials, we're an interesting generation of people. We grew up just indoctrinated into this idea that love should be this perfect thing and that it's flawless. Um, I really think that like we've been just so impacted by what our parents have taught us about relationships and compromise, and not compromising, your ideals or your goals, which in one sense is kind of okay, but we I don't know, I just feel like generationally, like, we're so traumatized by love at the same time, like, we're such a generation of, like, emotionally avoidant people, and maybe this is because, like, we're sort of the first generation to grow up in, like, a real digital age, like, we've isolated ourselves in dating apps, like, we don't know how to date in bars and, like, in real places anymore, and we are on the whole, and this is maybe just me spewing my own rhetoric, but I find we on the whole, like, we want love. We still buy into the idea, but we are at a disconnect with the fact that it's never gonna be what we want it to be. So we get scared of intimacy really, really easily, I find. We figure out, we have every excuse under the sun to leave a relationship, especially in conflict, which is just undeniable. You will be in conflict in relationships no matter what. So this show, and I speak this as someone who identifies with that. Like I am someone who, I have issue. I'm a child of divorce, and you take those things with you. You take those abandonment issues with you, and what I'm trying to convey in this show is that, like, we all feel that way. Like, we all in this generation feel that way, and it doesn't mean that we're weird or broken, but it does mean that we might have to shift our perspective, in what it actually means to be in love with someone. The show is a reminder to people our age that love is more than a feeling, but it has to be a choice. That's my little essay.
I love that. More than a feeling, but has to be a choice. That's so romantic.
Yeah.
So the other thing that struck me, and we're with real world, so I thought this would be a good question, is growing up, I remember sex experts and love and dating experts have historically been white and very often heterosexual and heteronormative. So there are no wrong answers here, but did you feel that they were like, did you ever feel excluded from or that they were like centering like a false worldview, or like your voice was needed for this show?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, I have a bit of a background in psychology. It's what I studied, and um, when I was going to school, I loved studying interpersonal relationships and stuff. But yeah, I mean, at large, like there's like a very heteronormative view of relationships and people's places in relationships. And I actually came to find that, even within the queer community, um, a lot of us fall into into the trap of um, designating ourselves like within those norms. And
Mm.
yeah, like I just wanted the show to be a safe space to give way to the fact that there's more than one way to do a relationship. Lots of relationships, heterosexual ones included, they can have different rules. Like the rules of your relationship don't have to be they don't have to be in parallel to like what the majority is. So I want this show to be for everybody. It is from my lens, and therefore it's in a queer lens, but I hope that everybody can find some sort of takeaway from this show.
Yeah. Oh, I think so. Yeah. All right. I'm going to try to get to some businessy questions because
Yeah,
that'll be helpful
yeah.
to people. Okay. What would you tell baby Alex as the producer, creator of this show? What would you say to him while getting ready to open or go through the process?
What would I say? I think be patient. Have so much patience. Because I came up with this idea a long time ago. I had an iteration of this idea in like 2016, but in the form that it's in now, I really thought of it in 2019. And um I think you just really have to be at peace with the fact that like you can write something and immediately love it, and like you have to understand that it's going to have to evolve, because other people are going to see it and give like really good critique and offer up really good, you know, just the things for you to take. Um, Funding is something that you have to be relentless at, and it takes forever, and you cannot be disappointed after a year and feeling in the same place. You just have to be patient. I had no patience going into this. And maybe it's just because the reason for doing it, you're a young creative, you getting into a program like this and you really want this to be your chance to prove yourself, and you want it out ASAP. But I think I'd say to baby Alex, like you have to do it because you really believe in the story, and
Hmm.
and not much else. You really just have to believe in the story.
Yeah. I love
That's
that.
my
It takes
guiding
so much.
light.
Oh, very true. It takes so much commitment. What was the most surprising part of the whole process for you?
um God, I think the fact that I could do it. Like,
Yeah.
I've had any writing experience that I had professionally is typically been very collaborative outside of, the odd short. But I'm used to writing with people in rooms, or Avocado Toast was me and Heidi and Perry for our second season working together on everything. And Well Versed was the first thing. It was daunting. Like, it was the first time I had to write 6 like 20-minute episodes of something all by myself. Um and you kind of know the tenets of what you need to do to break out a season of something, but it's just, it just feels like such a big task. Um so that I was able to complete all the episodes and just feel like I had something that felt cohesive was something. It's good. I don't know if that's, yeah, I don't know if that speaks to a lack of confidence or something, but it's like it's yeah, doing a digital series is like way more work creatively than people I think give it credit for.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right, we have a few seconds left. Do you consider yourself a control freak? And do you think that's a good thing when you're a multi-hyphenate on a project like this?
No, I think to a point. When I'm in the bubble, like when I'm in the writing bubble, absolutely. I'm like actually go insane writing. The during part of the writing, I hate. I can't stand it. I like it's torture. But then when I'm done and I like it, I love getting critique. I love giving it out to people and hearing feedback because it only makes it better.
I love that. Very
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Well, this time has flown by. Your answers are so good. I guess we're ready for Mark to come back. Thank you so much for
Yeah,
talking.
thank you. Hi, Mark.
Hi guys, that was a fantastic conversation. I was compelled the whole way, and I think Alex, your thesis on dating and relationships for millennials was sort of a fascinating detour into your show, because on the IPF side, we really see the distilled version of what your mind is trying to create and put into a project. But hearing you just kind of talk about the show, with a friend at a bar, it was just so fascinating to kind of speak about all of those elements, and Bronwyn, you as well. And you guys really got into sort of the heart of why we love supporting creator-driven personal stories through short-form series, and why we love reading the application so much. So there have been a few questions that have popped up over the course of the conversation that you have touched on, but it would be great to go into a little bit more detail on. So Jaleesa Marcel has a question. Can both of you share about your preparation to pitch? Any tips for writers directing hoping to do the same? So I'll add on to that. When you first apply to the IPF, you need to put your creative pitch into a maximum of 3 pages, which can be really difficult for creative people who have so much they want to share. So I don't know if you can bring us back, Alex, and then Bronwyn, to that time when you're applying and you're trying to put everything you have into those 3 pages to an evaluator who knows nothing about your project, and what you kind of tried to focus on. And then as a second part, if you can touch on if you have pitched in any other sort of format, a contest or applied to other financing, and what you focus on.
Yeah, I mean, it's so crazy. Like pitching is such an art form, I find, and you only get better at it as you keep going. But I think a lot of people get stuck on getting past the concept. And it's it's the first sort of thing that pops into your head when you think of the show. It's what happened to me. I was like, I really want to do this show about like matchmaker. There's so many like fun episodes that could come out of that. But I think the biggest thing, the most important thing that you need to convey in a 3-page pitch is what is the engine of the show? What is the thing that your character wants or that they're trying to overcome that is going to drive every episode forward? And it can just be as simple as that. Like it just needs to be in your plot in that first page. That is what people, I find, look for when they're looking, at a story, especially something as short as 3 pages. It's like, okay, well, we get it. This person, they're a matchmaker. We get the gimmick, and we could see how episodes happen, but like, why am I watching this? And like, what am I rooting for in this character? So if you can explain that, I think it just opens things up, and it makes the rest of that pitch so much easier. It makes your lead character and their supporting characters way easier in your brain to understand. It makes the world clearer. It opens up the genre to you, and just like like this is how this needs to be conveyed. So yeah. That's
Yeah.
my big thing. What's the engine?
Yeah, I think that I would agree. That's probably like the number one thing is just always keep track of the bouncing ball and like what is moving the story forward, what gets you to the next episode, why. I think there's one of the questions in the development pitch like application, I think is like what is the format or structure of each episode? And it's kind of vague, but it's such a good question because it makes you're forced to understand like why are the episodes like the shape, the length, what are the rules of each episode? And if you can't answer that, then you don't really know your story too well. I think I would also say, yeah, I kind of said before, but like, especially if you're a newer creator, like show some leadership and like you're the boss of this world. So like you have to really study like Bibles. They're available on the internet. You can just look for them of your favorite shows. Understand the rules so that you can break them strategically. I think like something that I think worked well in my application was I spent like 3/4 of one page just setting up like the rules of the world and the Kalupiliwit and everything, which is like, that's a lot of real estate to devote to something that's not about, the log line, the synopsis, the locations, the episodes. But I think it really shows that you're in command of the story, and you want your readers to have faith that you can take them on a journey and you know where you're going. So just go for that.
Yeah, those are great answers and two very memorable 3-page creative pitches to my memory when I first read them. The next question is, can you touch on how you've had to compromise with your series due to budget constraints and how you were still able to get your vision out there? So I know that you're both still in development and that you go into production next spring. So you're thinking about these things ahead of time, but you're not actually there yet. You can touch on the trailer as well. But one of the things with short form series is that the budget is drastically different than a half-hour series, broadcast TV series or an hour-long TV series. It's such a drastic difference. And the benefits is that you have full creative control over the project, but the downside is that you have less money to work with. So Bronwyn, maybe you can start with this question. You talked about killing your darlings, but then also knowing when to invest and reinvest for your project. So yeah, maybe you can start with that.
Cool, thank you. Yeah. Oh, budget. It seems like so much money, and like you quickly learn like it gets spent so quickly. Yeah, I think again, you're forced to go back to that creator writer mindset and like just ask yourself, like you have to understand your story so well and just know like what is actually important, what are you really trying to say, and just focus on, pick the most important things and focus on those. And always like, I feel like the whole thing is like work with an editor's eye. How can you achieve the same story, the same message, the same effect for less actors, less locations, less lighting? There's, and this applies to like scripts, production, whatever. Just economize whenever possible. And I think it will eventually lead to a stronger, healthier story anyways, because if there's anything superfluous in there, that's when the audience will like start to tune out. So it's annoying. It's really hard, but I think it does make your story stronger.
Yeah, I think it's a good practice too, honestly. Like it's a great, if you haven't produced anything before, like it's a really good exercise in like recognizing just how fast that money goes and what in the specific production you're making you really need to invest in. Unlike Bronwyn's project, like mine doesn't require any sort of special effects or anything like that. But there was a world in which, I free wrote this pilot, and there was a world in which there were so many sets. And then when we realized we were going to make it for digital, we were going to do IPF, like we had to find a way to economize and really make the most amount of use out of a couple. So that was one. And, maybe you just can't have like a big crowd scene every episode that you do. But it gets easier as you go along. Like yeah, I just think you have to really think about the day, like the production day, and what is going to eat up the most amount of your time, and how you can sort of negate that.
Those are really good tips, specific to both of your projects too, which I really like. And so thinking about your project and how you can economize is really good. We're running out of time. I just want to note in the chat that Amadeus and Samira both have questions relating to your multi-hyphenate positions on your respective series and how much work you do across the board. I don't think we have time to get into it today, but one of the requirements that we have is that when you apply for development, you need a story editor or development executive so that you're not alone making your project, because it is a ton of work, the creative and the business side of things. And I would love to sort of ask you about how you met other partners on your team, Charlie, David, sort of for well-versed, and Bronwyn, your mentors. Is there anything super quick you can say about connecting with mentors or other producing partners to get your project in a place where it's not you covering everything, even though you still have a lot of roles and duties? Anything super quick?
I would just say work with people you like and trust. Yeah, I met Charlie on, obviously Avocado Toast and stuff, and so I had a quick hand in terms of how he worked and what he's like to work with. So I was lucky in that sense. But even if you're having meetings with producers you haven't met before, it's just like, can you see yourself working with this person for a couple of years? And my editor is also just a very, very good friend. So I'm very lucky in that sense. His name is Izad Edamadi, and he plays my best friend in that trailer. So I was very lucky. But work with people that you can argue with, but you won't want to kill.
I love that. Yeah. And I would say, also as a multi-hyphenate, like it's good to have a controlling vision and like really believe in your story, but you will burn yourself out if you try to do everything. So yeah, delegate, find people. They don't have to be good at everything, but just use their skills and their strengths that they bring to the table. And you're not going to put a team together like the month before the application. You have to like start like ingratiating yourself into the larger like creator community, for a long time before you find your people.
Right on. Really wise words. Thank you so much for being here, Bronwyn and Alex. At the IPF, we really like to think of ourselves as sort of partners in this financing process, not just giving you the money and running away, but really sort of being with you through the entire process. And so you coming back to do a panel like this and talk with one another about your projects that we're really excited about, we really appreciate your time. Thank you to Real World for hosting this panel. This is the third time we've done it with IPF alumni interviewing each other, and we love this experience every time. I think each project has its own story to tell through the entire process, and we learn a lot from these conversations. So thanks for hosting us. Yeah, I think that's it. If you have any questions about the IPF, ipf.ca or info@ipf.ca, you can email and I'll get back to you. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah,
Thank you so much,
guys.
So nice to talk.
Yeah.